But
Yeah,
now, speaking of other, bad news, this is bad news number 2 we got to talk about here. Are you ready, Raul?
it's all right, guys. Let's just get through this. Good stuff is coming. We just got
We just-
two
two
more
more bad
downer
news.
topics.
Yeah, very, very sad. Listen, if you guys remember, we reported this this must have been a couple months ago, Raul. This is about Alec Baldwin being charged with involuntary manslaughter. So if you guys recall, we were talking about earlier how he was working on a cowboy type of movie,
Rust
and
is the
a
name
movie
of it.
called Rust.
That's right.
And he shot someone, one of the oh my goodness, I'm blanking out here. The
The
cinematographer,
cinematographer.
Helena Hutchins, I believe
Helena
was her name.
Hutchins. Yes.
And he shot her and killed her by accident. So that's what's been the story. And he went to court. He's been in court for a while now, and they've been trying to discuss the situation. And this comes to us from the New York Times. So, on Thursday, prosecutors said that they would charge Alec Baldwin along with the film's armorer, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, with 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter in the killing of the cinematographer Helena Hutchins, 42 years old, saying they believed he and Hannah had a duty to ensure the revolver was safe to handle. We're trying to definitely make it clear that everybody's equal under the law, including A-list actors like Alec Baldwin. Andrea Reeb, a special prosecutor appointed by Santa Fe County's district attorney to help handle the case, said in an interview. That's a whole sentence. And she also says, and we also want to make sure that the safety of the film industry is addressed and things like this don't happen again. SAG-AFTRA, the union representing film, television, and radio workers, said in a statement that the death of Miss Hutchins was a preventable tragedy, but that it was not a failure of duty or a criminal act on the part of any performer. If a jury found Mr. Baldwin or Miss Gutierrez-Reed guilty, it would choose between the 2 manslaughter charges. The more serious one includes a firearm enhancement and a mandatory 5-year sentence. The other charge carries a sentence of up to 18 months. So basically, if Alec Baldwin is guilty, he better be, he better hope to be lucky enough to be guilty of the 18-month instead of the 5 years, because that sounds awful.
Those are 2 very different consequences there. Like
Right?
I wonder why they're so vastly different. So
Yeah.
if he's found guilty of this charge, he could either do the 5-year or the 18-month,
Or maybe both. I mean, listen, it's all
I guess
up
it's just
to-
up to the judge, right?
Yeah, it's up to the judge and the jury. I mean, once the jury decides what's going on with these 2 people, that's going to be crazy. I feel bad for the second person because, we're here talking more about Alec Baldwin than we are about Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, who was the armorer. But I remember, Raul, we had this discussion a long time ago when we talked about this topic where, we were bringing up the fact that, he was the producer of this movie.
Right.
So
right.
technically, as a producer, you choose how to use your finances, and you decided to hire someone who was an armorer who wasn't really specialized in being an armorer. I remember we
a lot of the
reported
crew
this.
there were not union crew. That
And a
was
lot of the crew were not union crew.
big problem.
That's true. And so there's just so many backs and forths. In this article, it also said something along the lines of Alec Baldwin started suing actors or people behind the scenes in the movie because he was trying to cover up for himself. And then they're trying to sue him and they're trying to sue other people.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like this whole disaster, dude.
A lot of blame going around throughout this whole process.
A bunch of blame. And so, there is that side of me that's like, maybe he is guilty because he was the head honcho in charge of all of this.
That's sorry, Kevin. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
That's the point I was going to bring up, is that if you look at this one way, which I'll be honest, when this whole thing first went down, as much as Alec Baldwin has some issues in his personal life and all that stuff, I did at first kind of understand him. Like I kind of backed him up as far as it's not his job, right? It's not his job. That's why you have a prop master. That's why you have an armorer. That's why you have someone there checking the safety of all these props, all these weapons, and making sure there's no live rounds in the guns, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's somebody who is hired to do that job, and it is up to that person to make sure everything is safe on set for all the actors there, for everyone on set, not just the actors, crew, everyone. So, in that sense, when this first all came down, people were pointing their fingers at Alec Baldwin very quickly. Yes, he was the one that pulled the trigger, but ultimately it's the armorer whose job it is to make sure everything's safe. The armorer should have made sure that there were no live rounds in the bullets and make sure there was, everything was safe. Show it to Alec Baldwin, make sure Alec Baldwin saw that everything was all copacetic and all that stuff, and then hand the gun to him. So for a while, I was backing him up on this, right? Because he's an actor, right? He's not an armorer. He's not specialized in this kind of stuff. So how can you expect him to be able to do this stuff? How can you expect him to be able to check and make sure the gun is safe? Actors, that's not their job, right? That's why you hire an armorer. Now, having said that, I later found out that he's also a producer on this movie. Now that changes things a little bit, right? I was backing him up a little bit, but after finding out, oh no, he's a producer on this project, that's why they're charging him. That's why they're able to charge him, right? I think not from the standpoint of him being an actor, but they're charging him as a producer of the film.
I don't know if that's exactly what they're charging him with, but they are claiming that because he had the gun and he did pull the trigger, he was the one that killed this person. And again, they're saying it's involuntary manslaughter. So like he didn't mean to do it, but he did do it. So he is a murderer because he did that. Is what the court is trying to claim. But again, that's like up in the air because I feel like everything about this situation has been up in the air for the longest time. And at the end of the day, you can't really know 1,000% of what all the information for this is, unless you're in the courtroom listening to all the evidence,
Yeah, I was going to say, that's interesting that they're still charging him from that angle, because I figured the only way this would work is if they're going at it from him being a producer, because as the producer, the producer should be in, like you said, is in charge of gathering the finances for getting the right people to be involved with the project. And therefore he should have had a little bit more foresight and a little bit more, awareness as to the people he was hiring, the experience level, and definitely making sure that everybody working on that set was a union worker. I mean, this is a union project, and turns out you got people, some non-union people working on this union project. I mean, that's a big no-no. So, and because of that, it's like you can't verify everybody, on working on the project and all that stuff. So ultimately, him being a producer and being in that role, at the very least in that way, he does share some culpability.
Yeah. And also, I want to point out one more thing, which is the quote that I read earlier that said, we're trying to definitely make it clear that everybody's equal under the law, including A-list actors like Alec Baldwin. That quote to me seems really interesting, just because it sounds like the attorney is trying to point out, or the special prosecutor is trying to point out that, hey, Alec's not going to get away with this just because he's famous, okay? He's not going to get away with this. But then you could also read it the other way, which is just letting you all know, like, no matter who walks into the courtroom, this is all about the law and how we all follow it, and that's it. So hopefully, I just hate the courtroom stuff where they're trying to paint it out as this person's a villain because of this. And it's like, well, okay, this is a more sensitive topic that we're not 1,000% sure of all the information. Just like the whole Justin Roiland thing. We don't have all the information yet, so we can't be quick to judge. But that's the thing about, people in the community. We do judge the moment we hear something automatically. And it's, what's the word I'm looking for, Raul? It's the court of opinion, the opinion, what's it called? You know what I'm talking about?
Were you talking about innocent until proven guilty?
There is that, but there's the court of justice and there's the court of opinion, which is the people.
Right. The people, what the people think.
Yes, I butchered that sentence so badly.
The court of opinion, that's what that is. Yeah.
Okay, it is the court of opinion. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yes. Like, I think that's just, it does make it a lot harder for this kind of stuff. Also, I think Alec Baldwin's like 64, 67 almost. So if he went to prison for 5 years, the guy wouldn't be out till he's like in his 70s or, late 60s if he gets the second charge.
Yeah.
I don't know when we officially hear what they think of all this, but I'm sure we're going to hear a verdict at some point. And when they do, I'm sure we will report that for you guys.